The Second Battle of Guam was the American capture of the Japanese-held island of Guam, a United States territory during the Pacific Campaign of World War II. Background: Guam is the largest of the Marianas, 32 miles long and 10 miles wide. It had been a United States possession since its capture from Spain in 1898 until it was captured by the Japanese on December 10, 1941, following the attack on Pearl Harbor. It was not as heavily fortified as the other Mariana Islands such as Saipan that had been Japanese possessions since the end of World War I, but by 1944 it had a large Japanese garrison. The Allied plan for the invasion of the Marianas, Operation Forager, called for heavy preliminary bombardment, first by carrier aircraft and planes based in the Marshall Islands to the east, then once air superiority was gained, close bombardment by battleships. Saipan, Tinian, and Guam were chosen as targets due to their size, their suitability as a base for supporting the next stage of operations towards the Philippines, Taiwan and the Ryukyu Islands. The deep-water harbor at April was suitable for the largest ships, and airfields for Boeing B-29 superfortresses could be built from which to bomb Japan. The invasion of Saipan was scheduled for June 15, 1944. With landings on Guam tentatively set for June 18. The original timetable was optimistic, however. A large Japanese carrier attack and stubborn resistance by the unexpectedly large garrison on Saipan led to the invasion of Guam being postponed for a month. A U.S. naval and air bombardment lasted from 11 to 13 June 1944, involving 216 carrier aircraft and B-24s. On the 12th and 13th, 12 Japanese cargo ships and several fishing vessels were sunk. Battleships started shelling the island on June 27, joined by a carrier group on July 4, and 2 more on July 6, with the loss of 16 U.S. aircraft. Battle. Guam, ringed by reefs, cliffs, and heavy surf, presents a formidable challenge for an attacker. Underwater demolition teams reconnoitered the beaches and removed obstacles from 14 to 17 July. Despite the obstacles, on July 21, the Americans landed on both sides of the Orote Peninsula on the western side of Guam, planning to secure Ypres Harbor. The 3rd Marine Division landed near Agana to the north of Orote at 8:29, and the 1st Provisional Marine Brigade landed near Agate to the south. Japanese artillery sank 20 LVTs, and inflicted heavy casualties on the Americans, especially on the 1st Provisional Marine Brigade, but, by 0900, men and tanks were ashore at both beaches. By nightfall, the Americans had established beachheads about 6,600 feet deep. Japanese counterattacks were made throughout the first few days of the battle, mostly at night, using infiltration tactics. Several times they penetrated the American defenses and were driven back with heavy losses of men and equipment. The 77th Infantry Division had a more difficult landing on 23 to 24 July. Lacking amphibious vehicles, they had to wade ashore from the edge of the reef where they were dropped by their landing craft. The men stationed in the 2 beachheads were pinned down by heavy Japanese fire, making initial progress inland quite slow. Supply was very difficult for the Americans in the first days of the battle. Landing ships could not come closer than the reef, several hundred yards from the beach, and amphibious vehicles were scarce. The 1st Provisional blocked off the Orote Peninsula on July 25, and that same night Lieutenant General Takeshi counterattacked, coordinated with a similar attack against the 3rd Division to the north. The next day, General Obata reported, "Our forces failed to achieve the desired objectives." Lieutenant General Takeshi Takashina was killed on July 28, and Lieutenant General Hideyoshi Obata took over the command of the defenders. On July 28, the 2 beachheads were linked, and by July 29, the peninsula was secure. The counterattacks against the American beachheads, as well as the fierce fighting, had exhausted the Japanese. At the start of August, they were running out of food and ammunition and had only a handful of tanks left. Obata withdrew his troops from the south of Guam, planning to make a stand in the mountainous central and northern part of the island, to engage in delaying action in the jungle in northern Guam to hold the island as long as possible. After ensuring no significant Japanese forces operated in the southern portion of Guam, Major General Geiger started an offensive north with the 3rd Marine Division on the left flank, and the 77th Infantry Division on the right, liberating Agana on the same day. The Tian airfield was captured on August 1. Rain and thick jungle made conditions difficult for the Americans, but after an engagement with the main Japanese line of defense around Mount Barricada from 2nd to 4th August, the Japanese line collapsed. The 1st Provisional formed up on the left flank of the 3rd Marine on August 7, due to the widening front and continued casualties, in an effort to prevent the Japanese from slipping through the American gaps. The Japanese had another stronghold at Mount Santa Rosa, which was secured on August 8. On August 10, organized Japanese resistance ended, and Guam was declared secure, though an estimated 7,500 Japanese soldiers were estimated to be at large. The next day, Obata committed ritual suicide at his headquarters on Mount Mitagak, after sending a farewell message to Japan. Aftermath. A few Japanese soldiers held out in the jungle. On December 8, 1945, 3 U.S. Marines were ambushed and killed. On January 24, 1972, Sergeant Shoichi Yokoi was discovered by hunters. He had lived alone in a cave for 27 years. After the battle, Guam was turned into a base for Allied operations. 5 large airfields were built by the Seabees, and B-29 bombers flew from Northwest Field and North Field on the island to attack targets in the Western Pacific and on mainland Japan. 4 U.S. Marines were awarded the Medal of Honor for their heroic actions during the Battle of Guam: PFC Luther Skaggs Jr., PFC Frank Whitek, PFC Leonard F. Mason, and Captain Louis H. Wilson, Jr. Liberation Day continues to be celebrated on Guam every July 21. See also, 18th Infantry Regiment, Agana Race Riot, a violent confrontation between white U.S. Marines and black U.S. sailors. Battle of Guam, Pacific War Museum, Return to Guam, 1944 documentary and propaganda film about the battle, the war in the Pacific. National Historical Park, George Ray Tweed, Nimitz Hill. References. Further reading, Anderson, Charles. The Western Pacific. U.S. Army Campaigns of World War II. United States Army Center of Military History. CMH Pub 72-29, Gailey, Harry. The Liberation of Guam, July 21, 10 August. Novato, California, USA. Presidio Press. ISBN A0-89141-651 Exa, Guam, Operations of the 77th Division. American Forces in Action Series. United States Army Center of Military History 1990, 1946. CMH Pub 100-5, Hatashin, Omi. Private Yokoi's War and Life on Guam, 1944-72, the story of the Japanese Imperial Army's longest WWII survivor in the field and later life. Honolulu, University of Hawaii Press. ISBN A1-905246-69-2. Manchester, W. 1980, Goodbye, Darkness, A Memoir of the Pacific War, Boston, Little, Brown, and Co., ISBN 978-0-316-54501-3, pages 278-302, external links, The Marianas and the Great Turkey Shoot, World War II Database. Lodge, Major ORUSMC Historical Monograph, The Recapture of Guam, Historical Branch, United States Marine Corps, 1954. O'Brien, Cyril J. Liberation, Marines in the Recapture of Guam, Marines in World War II Commemorative Series, Marine Corps Historical Center, United States Marine Corps, 1994. Dyer, George Carroll. The Amphibians Came to Conquer, The Story of Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner. United States Government Printing Office. Archived from the original on May 21, 2011. Retrieved May 5, 2011. Keene, R.R. Wake Up and Die, Marine. Leatherneck Magazine, Photos from the Liberation of Guam, The Real Revo, a film clip, Allies Study, Post-War Security, etc. is available for free download at the Internet Archive. More, Pacific War Museum National Park Service site.